How to communicate with a man, 7 must-have tips. We're going to dive into this conversation today. And for the men watching, you're going to want to listen to this too, because everything I'm sharing goes both ways. Now, I've heard it said that women speak in 10,000 words while men can only hear in 10 words. Okay. It's a little bit of a joke. And yet I hear people say that communication is the key to a successful relationship. So then why do 65% of second marriages end and 75% of third marriages end? You would think if you've evolved to this ability to effectively communicate, to effectively vet, to effectively, have evolved and be more mature, people would be better at relationships than they actually are. And those are people that just get married. What about those who are single in midlife that have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different relationships that have lasted 3 months or longer, and yet they're still single, or they're currently in a relationship where they're unhappy? Communication is the key, and yet I believe we humans have barely evolved beyond grunting. Okay, there I said it. We barely evolved beyond grunting. Now, I know for those, we do have a sophisticated language. We have a dictionary with, I think, over 500,000 words. 500,000 words. Imagine that. I'm just curious, how many of those words do you actually know? How many of those words do you actually embody? See, many of us struggle with communication for a variety of different reasons. Either we're afraid to speak our truth, afraid to speak our truth, or the way we communicate is a bit dysfunctional. Now, you've heard me jokingly say before that women have a propensity to vomit their feelings. And while I'm merely joking, humans, both men and women, do a poor job identifying our feelings and expressing our needs to one another. Did you hear that? Identifying our feelings and then expressing our needs. And so what I'm going to share in a few minutes is designed to open your consciousness to say, maybe I am a poor communicator. Maybe I can do a better job when it comes to communicating. And I'm going to recommend a book in a short few minutes as well. Now, particularly women in relationship, I've observed that they oftentimes, and please forgive this joke, but they have duct tape over their mouth. And what I mean to say is the minute you like someone, you oftentimes are afraid to speak your truth. You're oftentimes afraid that if you share your feelings, what you share coming up, it's going to scare someone away. Now, many of you have heard me talk about my book, What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? A Journey of Personal Development, Self-Help, and Spiritual Work. I just want to point out 2 things from my book. Chapter 1, speak your truth. Just do it with kindness. And chapter 9, if it's sincere and from the heart, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. Folks, I'm here to say that communication is the key to a successful relationship, but it requires coming from a sincere place and not from a confrontational place. By the way, all the books I'm going to recommend today are in the show notes under Jonathan Recommend Books. Now, why am I pointing this out? Because I think it's time to improve communication for women as well as men. For the men watching, it's time to, when I say it's time to step up, look, you're not allowed to just sit back and just be focused on being the provider, protector. Relationships require more than just paying the bills and protecting from a physical sense. And while there's an element of importance, I think today's relationships are 2 sovereign beings showing up together and saying, how can we build a life with one another? How can we build a life with one another? That's really one of the key, what's the purpose of being in a relationship with someone in midlife if it's not about making babies and raising a family? It's like, how can we build a life together where we go down this journey till death do us part? Oh my God, I know that's scaring many of you. Death do you part. You don't even want to think about that. You don't even want to think about being all in with someone. But I'm going to tell you something. For those of us in our 50s, 60s, and even 70s, what's the point other than you want You want entertainment, romance, and physical connection. And I want to really emphasize this. A lot of people are dating strictly for entertainment, romance, and physical connection. It's based on attraction and not about building a life with someone. Going in with that intentionality, going in with that consciousness, I want to build a life with somebody. We are so hyper-focused on attraction, entertainment, romance, and physical connection. And it's no wonder relationships end at such a significant rate. And remember, I started this conversation by talking about how second and third marriages end at an alarming rate, because it's time to wake up. It's time to operate from a different level of consciousness. So before I get into the 7 must-have tips, I want to point out something for everybody. I did a little research online to come up with the common differences couples face, in relationship. And why is this important? Because within these differences are oftentimes conflicts, and it requires communication to overcome these conflicts. It requires talking. You can't just, sit underneath, sweep it under the rug and think, magic fairy dust is going to solve this, because many of you operate, and particularly you ladies, you operate, well, if we love each other, magic fairy dust is always going to work everything out. And guys, you operate, almost not just clueless, but you operate from a place of distancing yourself, because you don't want to get into the mud. You don't want to get into the nitty gritty of what's the purpose of being in relationship with one another. I want you to really think about that. Someone write that in the chat box, in the comments. What is the purpose of being in relationship with each other? Not where's this relationship going? What's the purpose of being in a relationship with each other? Like, do you see that's such a powerful statement. By the way, please forgive me. I'm obviously yelling and shouting because I'm pretty passionate about this. But when we talk about how to communicate, it starts with our words. It starts with being poignant with our words. And so some of the differences in couples today are money management styles, sex drive and intimacy needs, conflict resolution styles, family and in-law boundaries, long-term goals and life vision. Long-term goals and life vision. Like, when a guy says to you, oh, you know what, I just want to keep it casual. Let's just live in the moment. The minute you engage emotionally with another person, the minute you start to like someone, the minute you make an investment, we begin to get attached. It's kind of surprising how we get attached so easily. Do you know how many? I was watching a documentary on catfishing. There are people who have given away hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to romance scammers based solely on text messaging, never communicating on the phone, never FaceTiming, simply text messaging. As if this is a form of, by the way, it's the weakest form of communication. When I say the weakest form, do you know 90% of communication is nonverbal? It's hand gestures, it's pheromones, it's looking into someone's eyes, it's the way they move their body. And yet people have literally gotten attached to someone via text message. And that saddens me, because communication is so much more than that. And it's the ability to articulate your feelings and your needs in a way that can be seen, heard, and understood. If you're not familiar with the book, Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. And by the way, don't get offended by the title. The reason why it's called nonviolent, by the way, there's a link below to get the book I recommend. The reason why it's called nonviolent communication is because we oftentimes communicate with each other in a combative way. It's your fault, without looking at the 3 fingers pointing back at us. By the way, this should have been titled Compassionate Communication. If you haven't read this book, if you don't embody this book, then how can you be? And by the way, and I'm saying this is the Bible of books. on communication. I mean, there's other books as well. There's a gazillion books, but that should be nonviolent communication, or NVC, should be part of your repertoire. In fact, what I'm going to share with you in a minute is all based on NVC, nonviolent communication, otherwise called compassionate communication. So what are these 7 must-have tips? Tip number 1, and by the way, I'm looking at notes, so bear with me. Be direct with warmth, not an edge. Be direct with warmth, not an edge. Write that down. Be direct with warmth, not an edge. You're not 25 anymore, and thank God that. Say what you mean with grace. Say what you mean with grace. For example, excuse me. I've enjoyed getting to know you, and I'm open to seeing where this goes. I've enjoyed getting to know you, and I'm open to seeing where this goes, or where this could go. Excuse me. I've enjoyed getting to know you. I'm open to seeing where this could go. Instead of, well, I just don't date just for fun anymore. Think about that. Well, I don't date just for fun anymore. That's a buzzkill, not a boundary. Oh, I missed 11:11. For those who know, I usually catch myself. Be direct, be warm. As my book says, speak your truth. Just do it from a kind place. Oftentimes we think humor, it's funny how we oftentimes think right from the very beginning in dating, we should just use a little bit of humor, which kind of distances ourselves from what we're actually feeling. In fact, I can personally share with you, I have a propensity to be sarcastic, which is a deflection mechanism to something isn't right and I want to get your attention. But that's quite frankly not a boundary. That's simply a buzzkill. Okay? Number 2, ditch the resume and be real. Ditch the resume and be real. He doesn't need your life story on date 1, and you don't need his LinkedIn page either. For example, you can simply say something like this: I'm at a place in life where connection matters more than perfection. I am in a place in my life where connection matters more than perfection. How about you? How about you? It's simple, it's inviting, and it's mature. See, I'm here to encourage more mature communication, more direct communication, more heart-centered communication from our heart. Isn't that what this is all about? Isn't romantic relationship about connecting with our sincere, heart-centered space? You see, many of us don't need a relationship for a roommate. We don't need a relationship for someone to pay our bills. Now, some people do need that. I recognize that some people need that. And in some, for the younger demographic, a demographic where it's oftentimes if the mother is the homemaker and the father is the breadwinner, for example, then it's going to be, a different type of relationship. It's a different type of mutual exchange. But for midlife, this is the real challenge. We don't go in with the purpose of a relationship. We don't even focus on what's most important, is that the two of you have something radically in common that gets you excited about talking with one another. We're just so we're hyper focused on attraction, entertainment, romance, and physical connection. And we just hope that everything will magically work out. Number 3, use I feel, not you didn't. Use I feel, not you didn't. Midlife men and women can be sensitive too. Lead with your heart, not your scoreboard. For example, let me repeat that. Midlife men are sensitive too, just like women. Lead with your heart, not your scoreboard. For example, I felt a little unsure when I didn't hear from you, and I just want to check in. I felt a little unsure when I didn't hear from you, and I just want to check in, instead of, you could have at least said goodnight. And I saw that in a text message from a woman. I saw her say, at least you could have said goodnight. Or she said, hey, did I just get ghosted? You know, God, I'm really yelling. Please forgive me. I'm passionate about this. Okay. Number 3, use I feel, not you didn't. Okay. Number 4, don't teach, test, or tolerate crumbs. Don't teach, test, or tolerate crumbs. I'm going to repeat that because I got tongue tied. Don't teach, test, or tolerate crumbs. You're not his coach, his mother, or a woman waiting to be chosen. You know, it seems to me that a lot of people in midlife use online dating as a replacement for therapy. Seriously. And I'm guilty of this. I am so radically guilty of this. Literally being able to vomit all of my stuff to somebody after you build a little bit of rapport, after you build a little bit of attraction. Remember when I talked about those romance scammers? They oftentimes, once they've hooked you, all they do is talk about their problems. Now, they're scamming you, but I'm just saying in the midlife arena, men and women alike oftentimes use dating as a form of replacement for therapy. So don't teach, test, or tolerate crumbs. You're not his coach, his mother, or a woman waiting to be chosen. So for example, in communication, I'm looking for something meaningful. If that's not where you are, I totally understand. I want to repeat that. I'm looking for something meaningful. And if that's not where you're at, I totally understand. Let him opt in or let him opt out. I'm going to repeat that one. This is really important. I'm looking for something meaningful. If that's not where you're at, I totally understand. Do you see how graceful that is? Do you see how diplomatic that is? It's like, this is where I'm at. Where are you at? Now, here's where it gets a little tricky. The word meaningful. Ladies, okay, this is where, again, I invite you to really understand the words you are using. If you say the word meaningful, which is a powerful word, but then you better know what that looks like for you. What that looks like for you. I once coached a woman who came to me, said, I need help in my relationship. I go, great. What do you need? He goes, I just want more commitment out of my relationship. I'm like, great, powerful word, commitment. I said, what does commitment look like for you? But Jonathan, I just want more commitment out of him in our relationship. I'm like, great. What does that look like for you? But Jonathan, I just want more commitment. She kept screaming it as if saying it louder had emphasis. The word commitment can mean different things to different people, just like the word meaningful can mean something different to one person. One person could think a meaningful relationship is we see each other every other week for an hour. That could be meaningful to that person. Identify when you're using such language, be mindful of what it means for you behind the words. Don't teach, test, tolerate crumbs. Number 5, timing, tone is everything. Timing and tone is everything. Don't bring up the heavy stuff into a light moment, and don't interrogate, invite. Now, many of you know I talk about interrogating when dating. Now, let me explain, okay? Interrogation is about getting to the truth, So what I mean by interrogating is ask poignant questions in the early stages of dating. In the early stages of dating, simply to determine if you're compatible with one another, but it's about getting to the truth. It's about doing it in a lighthearted way. It's about an invitation and not necessarily, with the light shining on their face. I don't mean it in that sense. I mean, it's about getting to the truth. It's about inviting in, but timing and tone means everything. So for example, can I share something that's been on my mind? Can I share something that's been on my mind? Versus we need to talk. Oh my God, we need to talk is the heaviest phrase out there. The heaviest phrase out there. And it can be it's like saying someone's name, like your parents saying, Jonathan, come here. Like you felt like you did something wrong. Tone and timing is everything. So when you're going to have these conversations, just make sure that it's the right time. There's a good space for doing it. And your tone means everything. Can I share something that's been on my mind? Versus, we need to talk. Can you see the difference between the two? Number 6, Acknowledge what's good. It builds rapport. Acknowledge what's good. It builds rapport. Acknowledge what's good. It builds rapport. Men over 45 are often undervalidated. A sincere compliment lands big on a guy. A sincere compliment lands big on a guy. For example, I admire how grounded you seem. It's refreshing. Appreciation over flattery. A big difference. I can tell you that most divorced men say the same thing. I felt underappreciated in my relationship. Ladies, you feel the same way too. I think that's a common thing for both men and women alike. Acknowledge what's good. And lastly, number 7, ask like a woman and not like a girl. Ask like a woman. A woman is graceful. She's diplomatic. She's a lady. If you're confused, don't guess. Ask. Mature love requires mature questions. If you're confused, don't guess. Ask. Mature love requires mature questions. Example, how are you feeling about us to get to know each other? Versus, do you like me? Are we exclusive yet? You see the difference? How are you feeling about getting to know each other versus, do you like me? Are we exclusive yet? See, it's so important to show up in communication in a kind, caring, sincere way from the heart, because when you speak from the heart to the right person, they're not going to abandon you. They're not going to disappear. They're not going to ghost. And if they do, it's because they're not the right person. Is this sinking in? Wait, see my coffee mug? Is this sinking in? Is this resonating with you? Please let me know. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all in the first 24 hours. As always, if you find value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. And if you want to connect with me directly, there's links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. There's a link to join my group called Midlife Love Mastery. There's links to follow my Instagram and all that good stuff. And the books I recommend, all listed below. All right, those who know my live format know it's time for Q&A. If you have a question, there's a little chat box in the corner. Write the word question, then post the question thereafter. Or you can purchase a super sticker, super chat. All the monies from the super sticker, super chat goes to a scholarship fund in the name of my son, Connor Asley. That's a picture of him right there with his brother Colin and myself when we were in Cancun. He's my son who passed away over a few years ago. And his honor, we donate to causes like the Hoffman Process, Insight Institute, and scholarships to coaching as well. And our goal today is $50, so I'd appreciate some love. All right. While I'm waiting for questions, I want to answer a question that came in. Someone asked, why are you still single, Jonathan? And I thought I wanted to address that question. Why are you still single? Well, this is what you can say. So, when I look back at my life, and this is going to take me a few minutes to share. When I look back at my life, I want to share with you my mindset of what I thought relationships were all about. So, hey, growing up, I'm a late tail end baby boomer, just about the Gen X period of time. And I was raised with the following narrative. Go to college, get a job, meet someone, get married, buy a house, start a family. That was my programming. In fact, my programming was, you're a man, you're the provider, protector. That's all you need to know about being in relationship. My father was of the silent generation. Both my parents were from the silent generation. And that was the narrative I was raised with. And in that time, I met someone. You know, it's funny. I met my now ex-wife, Erin, through a video dating service. It's so funny. And the irony was when I went to I don't know if you know Great Expectations. It was like Great Expectations. but it was a video dating service where you went into their office, you looked at a bunch of videos, and I saw a woman I knew who was also a waitress at the Cheesecake Factory, and I knew her, so I connected with her, and she connected with me. And we went on a date, and it turns out we had mutual friends. We grew up. She lived I lived in South Torrance. She lived in Palos Verdes, which is literally a few miles. Our high schools were a few miles from each other. We had mutual friends. We began a relationship. We started to hang out with our mutual friends. All my friends were getting married. I was in my late 20s at this time. All my friends were getting married, and it seemed to make sense that I married her. And why I'm sharing this with you is I had no clue how to be a husband. I focused only on being the provider protector. In that sense, that was my role. And I was kind of a jackass in our relationship. We had differences between the two of us, not enough to where it made a difference, but I was still a very selfish, shallow person at that point in my life. And after about 12 years of marriage, we went through a divorce. Now, interestingly enough, while going through a divorce, I lost my high-end corporate job, and the market crash wiped me out of 2008, 2009. This was after we split our assets. And I was an emotional train wreck. And I'll be candid with you. I began online dating. Online dating was the Wild West back then. It was so brand new. And I thought it was just simple. You can plug in exactly what you want and someone would magically appear. And sure enough, I'll never forget my first date with someone. I mean, she fit the bill of what I thought I wanted. Nice woman, nice date. But something wasn't right. A few days later, meet a nice woman, nice date. Something wasn't right. A few days later, meet another woman, nice date. Something wasn't right. I'll be candid with you. What wasn't right was me. I was an emotional train wreck. I began using online dating as a form of therapy, talking to women, sharing our experiences. Because in the demographic I was dating, the over 40 crowd, there was divorce and alimony and child support and visitation rights and family court. All of this emotional tornado whirlpool that I was experiencing. And I was so confused. I was so confused at that point in my life. And here, remember I shared with you, I lost my high-end corporate job. Well, at that same time, I was living off of the savings of the sale of our house. But then the market crash got wiped out. And I had to move in with my mom and dad at age 40. Folks, I used to live in a $2 million home when I was married. Now I had to move in with my mom and dad at a retirement community. Literally 100 square foot room. I used to be like Mr. Big from Sex and the City. I was so demoralized, but what was surprising? Online dating was my drug of choice, and I was connecting with women. I was showing up as the ambassador of my best self because I was afraid to share who I really was. I was such a wounded human being at that point in my life. But I met a woman, and during that time, between my divorce and 5 years later, where I met a woman and we had a relationship for about 6 years. It was on again, off again for 6 years. I had a couple 3-month relationships at that time. I was such a mess, but it's interesting how you ladies are such beautiful, loving, kind creatures. You'll accept a broken man. I was such a broken man. I think there was something endearing about me, which certainly, I wasn't intent to deceive, but I was a broken man. And as I began dating, I met a woman through some mutual friends and actually through an online dating site, Match.com. Met a woman who was 10 years older than me. She was a therapist, a doctor. And when I told her my sad story, she didn't abandon me. But I will tell you, when I met her, I was a train wreck. And quite frankly, that relationship allowed me to rebuild my life. I began my dating coaching business just shortly around that time. Okay. And she cared about me because she wasn't looking for someone to financially take care of her. She was very set, and she was a very nurturing, caring person, a very empathetic person. I think, by the way, she knew, she even said early on, she goes, look, Jonathan, I probably make a better big sister than I would a girlfriend. But somehow she accepted me in all of my trauma, my wounding, my faults. And as our relationship progressed, we were misaligned with each other, and sometimes we'd butt heads. This is one of the reasons why we broke up and we get back together. We'd break up and get back together because there was care there, but there was a misalignment between the two of us. And as I started to notice this misalignment between the two of us, most importantly, I was a train wreck. It wasn't right to be in relationship with her. And so we finally ended. And then within the next 5 years, I lost my mother, I lost my son, and my father moved from United States to go back to his home country where he wanted at age 93, because that's where he wanted to die. And my world was another chaos. But thankfully, I built a successful business. I built a successful YouTube channel. I had a successful business that was motivating me in those 5 years between my my second most significant relationship to my third most significant relationship that happened in 2022, where I fell in love with somebody. And she lived in Chicago and I lived in Los Angeles. Actually, she reached out to me. I wasn't searching. And she said, I'm looking to move. I want to get out of the cold weather and I'd like to move to a sunny place, either California or Florida. And so we began a relationship together and I fell deeply in love. But it turns out for her, she wasn't happy living here. While she cared for me, I don't think she fell in love with me. I think she cared for me deeply, but we were misaligned in our core passions. She had a passion for traveling the world 3 weeks out of the month, and I have a passion for the inner world, the spirituality, the personal development. And because we had misaligned passions, it wasn't the right relationship for us. And she ended the relationship. And I was devastated, folks, truly devastated. I didn't show it outwardly because I wanted to show that I was stoic. I wanted to show that, you know, I could rise above. And we had a very conscious uncoupling. And I understand, folks, if it's not right for one person, it's not right for two people. I'm going to repeat that. If it's not right for one person, it's not right for two people. And that relationship at the time of this recording ended about 1.5 years ago. And I was in a grieving process. And during the grieving process, I learned so much more to be a better coach, and understanding that without going in without intentionality, if you don't go in with direct intentionality and an understanding of your shared passion, it's going to be problematic because, attraction, entertainment, romance, and physical connection is just the surface part of a relationship. And she's a good person, I'm a good person. It just wasn't meant to be. And she subsequently met someone who matches the lifestyle she desires. Folks, lifestyle compatibility is so critically important for those of us in midlife. And if we're not conscious of that in the early stages, this can be problematic. This can be problematic in the dating process. So where am I at today? Why are you still single? Folks, when you get to midlife, and I'm 60 years old, when you get to midlife, there's more concerns. There's health concerns. There's money concerns. There's the shared passions I've talked about. And while there are beautiful people all online, there is an abundance of people. I'm not interested in dating for dollars. I'm not interested in the telemarketing way of dating in the online community. I'm just not. While it's like a broken clock, it works twice a day. It does work. People are falling in love through an online connection. Right now, I just don't want to do the random dating. I want to connect with someone at a heart-centered level. So, if I meet someone out in the real world, great. If we connect and we seem to be aligned, great. I'm doing the things I love so I can be in environments for the things that are most passionate for me. And I hold the space that someone amazing will enter into my life. I'm not here. I still hold space that someone amazing will enter into my life. But just recognize this, folks. In midlife, it is more challenging. You can either go on the hunt for somebody using the online method, or you can start to allow someone into your life by opening your heart, by doing the inner work, by learning the communication skills I discussed in this video. All of these things help prepare you for the kind of relationship you seek. And by the way, when someone says you're single, why are you still single? You simply say, hey, you know what? I have the best relationship in my life. I have a relationship with myself. Remember, this is what matters most in your life, whether you meet a mate or not. It's not about finding a life partner. It's about finding the life partner within yourself. That's the most important part of this journey. At least that's my belief system, and that's where I'm at today. Is this sinking in? Is this resonating with you? Please let me know. I'd like to hear your thoughts on what I just shared. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all. Just remember, if you find value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. And if you want to connect with me, there's links below to connect with me as well. All right, now it's time to look at, oh, by the way, if you want to join the Love Seat right now, I just post a link. If you want to talk to me directly right now, I just post a link, okay? Escalade said, yes, this is resonating with me. I'm so happy to hear that. Okay. Denise says, just remember, just because someone is where you enjoy yourself doesn't mean they are there for the same reason. Exactly. All right. I saw some questions that came in earlier. Connection takes time and vulnerability. Absolutely. Great point. Irish Fairy Tarot said, it's about emotional maturity and honesty. I think that's what it boils down to. That can't be fast-tracked. Yes. See, we have this need for an accelerated learning curve with someone because we don't want to waste our time with the wrong person. But it takes time to build trust with another human being. You're very right there. Irish Tarot card says, Irish Fairy Tarot says, you can't force men on this journey. It's mileage, but yet women with mileage are classed as what? I don't know what that means. Sassy Lady says, being in midlife, each partner has their own established life. So that's what they want together can be some, wait. Being in midlife, each partner has their own established life. So what they want together can be something special without marriage. Life partners while keeping individuality alive. You know what? That's an interesting comment, Sassy. And I want to address this. I want to address this because, see, this is a really critical point here. Each people in midlife, you have your established life, they have their established life. Okay. This is the challenge with midlife is how do you fit this into that, particularly in lifestyles, particularly in values, and particularly in emotional maturity. So let's look at values. Remember I said earlier, I think it's important to identify your key values. Now, first off, honesty, integrity, trust. I mean, I call those a given. In other words, that's already needed there. You don't need to focus on that. But what is your core value? For example, if health is your core value, I mean, really healthy lifestyle is a core value, and you meet someone who eats bonbons and garbage all day long, you're going to have a problem with that person because your value is health. Your value is health. I know in my life, one of my core values is personal development, self-help, spirituality, even therapy in there. In other words, growth, individual growth is one of my highest values. And if someone is simply looking for attraction, entertainment, romance, and physical connection, then that doesn't line up with my value. No disrespect in my last relationship, we were misaligned in this area. For her greatest passion was to see the world. She looked at it from the physical aspect, and I look at it from the emotional aspect. We had two gigantic different values in our lives, and ultimately that ended up being the deal breaker for her. You know, having that shared passion in your values at midlife is the glue that keeps it together, is the glue that keeps it together. There was, by the way, in her case, there was more to it. It had to do with family and some other things in there. So there was not a misalignment, but there was a geographic misalignment between us as well. Okay, blending lives. Ultimately, look, if you meet someone who has a busy lifestyle and they're so fully curated in their lifestyle that they only have a few hours a week to spend with you, you've got to ask yourself, does that work for you? I can't tell you how many women come to me for coaching, and the lifestyle that they have is so radically different than the other person's lifestyle that, yes, they might see each other on occasional, but it's a casual part-time relationship. Ultimately, if you want the relationship to go the distance, you have to be able to blend your lives together in such a way, eventually be able to blend your lives together. And that doesn't necessarily mean having to get married or live together. It simply means being able to build teamwork with one another. And ultimately, isn't the point of a midlife relationship? Aren't we looking for someone to grow old with and die with? Then you have to be willing to go all in together. And this is what requires emotional maturity and good communication skills. And sadly, most human beings have poor emotional maturity. They are still deeply wounded from their past relationships or their childhood trauma that causes them to be problematic in relationship. They don't have good relationship skills. And this is the hard part to vet for in the early stages of dating. This is why you have to ask deeper questions early on. Are they still hung up on their ex? Do they still have a resistance to commitment? Do they have an abandonment issue? Do they have rejection issues? These are questions that must be answered early on, because these are going to be the problems later on down the road. And certainly before the penis ever goes inside the vagina, it's important to establish, what's the purpose of this relationship? What's the purpose of this relationship? Are we looking to build a life together? Or are we just looking to be, entertain, romance, and have physical connection? This is why my dating vows is so critically important. By the way, there's a link below to get my dating vows, but these are agreements that you make with one another in the early stages of dating just to see if you're on the same page. And while this isn't a guarantee, it's better than doing nothing, ladies. And the dating vows go like this. I agree to explore the process to getting to know you from a truthful place with the intent to declare something serious within the next 3 to 6 months. I agree to be monogamous sexually while we're having regular sex together. I agree not to actively seek to meet and date others while we're in the dating process, including taking down our dating profiles. I agree to speak up if this isn't working for me versus pulling back, ghosting, and disappearing. And I agree to invest regular time in the process to getting to know you. Folks, 80% of people will bail on this because they want that companionship, connection, and sex, but do they want commitment? If you are not committed to commitment, this is going to be a problematic dynamic between the two of you. And I'm just simply inviting you to be more intentional in the process. And ladies, listen, I know you can just sit back. I can just sit back in my feminine energy and let the man lead. Most men are clueless. Ladies, you are in charge of your relationship destiny. Don't give that up to a man. But Jonathan, all the other dating coaches just tell me to let the man lead. If men were such good leaders in relationship, why do first marriages end at a 50% rate, 65% of second marriages, and 75% of third marriages if they're such great leaders? And I know, ladies, you've been told that the problem is the feminist movement. The problem isn't the feminist movement. The problem isn't empowerment. The problem is we're acting like a bunch of children in the dating process. Is this sinking in? Is this sinking in? Is this resonating with you? Please let me know. I'd like to hear your thoughts on what I just shared. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all. All right, let's keep going here. Okay. Hey, if anyone wants to join the love seat, hey, listen, I would love to interact with one of you. Jump on right now. Sassy wants to point out, Jonathan, you've always had a fast speed getting to know someone since there's anxiousness. Takes effective time and energy to get to know someone without focusing on the end goal. I want to acknowledge this because there's an element of truth to this. I will say that part of it is the physical connection is very hard to deny when there's chemistry between two people. But in my last significant relationship, we actually got to know each other over the course of a year before we physically met. We spent some time connecting with one another via phone and from a friendship place. And when we met, we agreed to meet as friends. The only reason why we fast-tracked the relationship is because of distance. And that was the problem. And I recognize that. That was the problem. The distance kind of required fast-tracking the relationship because I just didn't want to do a back and forth long distance dating dynamic. So because of that, distance did fast track that. If she had lived here, I think we would have gotten to know each other over a little bit more time. We still would have been in relationship with each other, but I think we would have came to the conclusion that there was a difference between the two of us. I think part of her problem was she wasn't happy living here. So that played a role in that. But you're right. I have fast tracked and I'm being very mindful in anyone in the future not to emotionally dive in until we built trust with one another. Emotionally dive in until we build trust with one another. Bonnie Jones is in the house. I'm 67, dating a great guy, 16 months, but it's so challenging. Everything you're saying is so true. Challenging is an understatement. Life partners allow for each other to reinvent the relationship. Yeah, listen, I mean, today's relationships are rather casual because they're not building a life together. If you're not building a life together, then you're just sharing a life with each other, but you're not building something. And if you're not building something, it can be potentially problematic because by the way, the minute there's a conflict, you're like, I'm done. See, people in casual relationships, the minute there's a conflict, here, I want to go back to that. The minute there's a conflict, people run. This is why most relationships, why people go from relationship to relationship to relationship, because they're not working through it. This is one of the biggest challenge with midlife dating is people aren't good at conflict resolution skills. They're not good at communication skills with one another. And so this can be a problematic. So, it's like deciding, are we doing this for the long run? And if we are, what are we going to do when conflicts arise? Are we going to work through our conflicts? Given that the most significant conflict centers around money, centers around sex, centers around conflict resolution, if you haven't learned how to navigate your differences and resolve them in a healthy way, this is going to be problematic. And Bonnie, you're a perfect example of a significant percentage of my population is that this is like, can be our last chance at relationship in our 60s or 70s. And are we going in with intentionality, or are we just simply going in for companionship, connection, and sex? If you get to have sex, is it casual or is it something leading to long-term? And I think it requires grown-up conversations in the early stage of dating instead of being ambivalent to all. That's my opinion on that. Bonnie, great question. Thanks for posting. If you have a comment, anyone post a comment below. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Cindy says, the healthy lifestyle you described is an issue with my current relationship. Many other good attributes, but concerned overcoming this one. Will be watching this again or maybe calling you. So Healthy lifestyle. Folks, for those of us in midlife, this is really a critically important factor to consider. Do you care about your health? That really matters. Do you care about your health? Now, I don't mean that you're literally doing blood tests every day to determine you're eating properly, but do you care about your health? See, midlife relationships is more challenging because we have, it's not about making babies and raising a family. It's like, are you going to be there for me when I get sick? And most of us want to maximize our life. We want to maximize our time with someone. So if someone doesn't value health, I mean, listen, I try to eat healthy, but I do occasionally eat processed food. But I would say 80–90% of the time, I do my best to eat healthy, just from a personal perspective. And yes, I could stand to lose a few pounds. But I am mindful that health is an important factor for a successful relationship. This is why I go to regular doctor visits. This is why I take medication for my heart, because I have hypertension. I care about my health. If someone doesn't care about their health and they are with somebody who cares about their health, it's not about whether or not you're a vegan or not. This isn't the issue of being a vegan or a vegetarian. This is more, how important is a healthy lifestyle to you? Because if someone doesn't care about their health and someone does, that's a value difference. And again, you don't need a body to be happy. You want a partner in your life. You want someone to go the distance. You want someone to hold your hand when you're going through chemotherapy. You want someone to wipe the vomit from your face when you're going through chemotherapy. You want someone to drive you to the colonoscopy appointment. You want someone that encourages healthy life. In fact, the reason why men live longer in relationship, men don't value their health the same as women do. Men live longer because women push them to go to the doctor more frequently. So, Cindy, you're absolutely right. Healthy lifestyle is critically important, I believe. And while there are many other attributes, I think it's important to express it from a heart-centered place. Your health matters to me. Your health matters to me. Would you be open to shifting your lifestyle so we can maximize our life together? Would you be open to that? And then you have to decide, are the other attributes solid enough to say, hey, we're still building a life together? This was a great question, Cindy. Thank you for posting it. Hey, everybody, I'd like to hear your thoughts on what I just shared. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all in the first 24 hours. I think that was a great question. And Sassy wants to follow up with that. Misalignment on core values on lifestyle should have been easily identified in the beginning. I know you all moved in together since it was an expensive California. She mentioned it was one. Okay, so someone's coming back to my, Sassy, you're talking about my circumstances with my partner. Folks, in retrospect, it's interesting because lifestyle compatibility is a challenge. And in my last relationship, we dove in rather fast. We were aligned in some areas. The Venn diagram did match up in a few areas, but ultimately what we didn't realize, I think this was important, and this is a perfect time to talk about this. What I didn't realize is what my core passion was and her core passion was different. And while our Venn diagram crossed each other a little bit, ultimately, we didn't identify that as fully. And I am very mindful of that of going forward. Folks, I can't begin to stress the importance of a shared passion together. That's the glue that keeps a relationship together. We kind of shared each other's passion. I share a little passion for travel in the case of her, and she kind of shared a little passion, but ultimately this is where we were in two different places in our lives. And I didn't see that going in. I'm going to own that. I didn't see that going in, Sassy. But it didn't mean that there wasn't value from the experience. I am so radically grateful for the relationship. I learned so much about myself in this relationship. I was able to heal so much during this relationship. And she even shared with me personally, I grew so much in this relationship. So there was actually, we were perfectly aligned for what we needed in that point in our life, we were perfectly aligned to help each other grow. And that's ultimately the value in a relationship. I think the purpose of a relationship is to help each other grow as individuals. And just because it didn't go the distance didn't mean that relationship didn't have a significant amount of value. I am so radically grateful for that relationship. It helped me grow. It helped me learn. I had a wonderful time. We had a wonderful relationship. It wasn't meant to go the distance, and that's okay too. Folks, I'm here to say if it doesn't go the distance, that's okay too. We've got to let go of this narrative. Now, again, at this stage in our lives, we went in looking at from a life partner perspective. We evaluated each other from a life partner perspective, and we realized we weren't life partners. Could that have been determined earlier? Probably. But it takes as much time as it needs to take. It's about but we were mindful with each other. We connected with each other on a regular basis, and we talked it out. And if I was younger, I would do things a lot differently. But that's the whole point of life. We learn through our experiences. I don't think I would have listened to if I was talking to my younger self, I wouldn't have listened to me. I had to experience all this. And folks, this isn't a destination. A relationship isn't about the destination. Again, I'm still a life partner based coach. It's encouraging life partner base. But ultimately, this is a journey of self-discovery. This is a journey, folks, of self-love. And that's what I'm here to encourage everyone to dive into self-love. Is this sinking in? Is this resonating? I'd like to hear your thoughts. Post a comment below. Michelle has just pointed out, Jonathan, you are the best, Jonathan. 6 months into a growing partnership, I turned 59. I just finished my master's. We both need to lose weight. Living together would help, but I don't want to push it too quickly. I know this is, a challenge to blend lives with someone, because the minute you move into together, you're blending lives from a financial perspective as well. A lot of people are moving in together and doing test drive relationships. But here's the thing. If you're going to do it together, have a plan, first and foremost. Talk about your emotions significantly on a regular basis. Do regular check-ins with one another. Go to workshops to learn effective communication skills. If you go in intentionally, you have a greater chance for success. But if you go in ambivalently, it's going to be more problematic. Is this sinking in? Is this resonating? I want to hear what you think about what I just shared. Post a comment below. I'd like to hear your thoughts. All right. If you have a question, if you want to, hey, listen, if you want to join the Love Seat Live, I just posted a comment or just posted a link there. Okay. Let's see what we've got here. V.I. Simmons says, I am drained with the relationship trail and error type situations. Monday, I will be 52. My youngest just graduated high school. I think I'll try to learn who I am again. I like that. Oh, by the way, please forgive my slurping. I like that. It's a discovery of self-love. Ruth says, men don't like to talk about emotions. Who gives the fuck what men don't want to do? You do it. And if they're not aligned with you, then you say, I am not aligned with you. Folks, it's time to change this narrative. Men aren't here to be provider protectors anymore. And by the way, the strongest man is a provider of emotions and a protector of emotions. That's a quality man, not who can pay the bills and physically beat someone up. It's, does he provide emotions and does he protect your emotions? That's the most important thing. I invite everyone to lean into. Is this sinking in? Is this resonating with you? Please let me know. Hey, I'd like to hear your thoughts on what I just shared. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all in the first 24 hours. As always, if you find value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. And if you want to connect with me directly, There's links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. There's a link to join my group called Midlife Love Mastery. There's a link to follow me on Instagram and get all the books I recommend. And by the way, if you haven't noticed, I've got a new pair of eyeglasses. Surprised someone hasn't commented on that. But anyway, I hope you found value, and thank you so much. Folks, please donate to the Connor Asley Scholarship Fund before I wrap up. There's a little dollar sign in the chat box. Please donate some money to the fund. I'd certainly appreciate it. It goes to a good cause, okay? All right, folks, I'm going to wrap up this video as I always do. First off, give myself a big, gigantic Jonathan Barrick of self-love. I'm going to reach into the camera and give you a hug of love if that's okay. I'm asking you to turn to someone, a pet, a teddy bear, a pillow, and give it or them a hug of love, because hugs are a great source of love. And let's face it, we could all use more love in our lives. I want to thank Irish Pharaoh Terry, Jahil, Sarah, Ruth, V.I. Simmons, Poultry, Mindblowing, Debbie, Michelle, let's see, Jahala, KT, Denise, Sassy, you came up with good questions, Darlene, Michelle Fry, everybody, Irish Pharaoh Terry, Taro, thanks everyone. Wishing you all a super duper wonderful day.